If you're interested in the process from a live animal to basically processed hanging, ready to go into the cooler, I'm going to show you everything from the beginning to the end. Again, it's not for everybody. If it's not for you, please tune out. This is not meant to offend anybody or upset anybody, but this is part of our life here, and this is what we do. It sustains this meat that we take today will sustain 4 families for a good 6 months. So we are essentially a calving farm. We don't beef our calves or cows. The cows we keep all have calves, and then the mothers are around for a long time, usually for several seasons, and most of them die of old age. So we don't butcher cows or calves. The only cows we take and harvest twice a year, we harvest 2 cows. So we take 4 cows total for beef purpose, and that's for our 4 immediate families in the area. So 2 cows will sustain 4 families for a whole 6 months, basically. And we split the two animals between the 4 families, and that will sustain us for 6 months. Cows that we harvest are steers, which they are about 15 months old at the time. Basically, a steer is a male cow that has had its testicles removed when it's young. They basically do it when they calve. So today I'm going to be showing the process of somebody come in to do the harvesting. Today we're going to be showing the process of the actual butchering. I'm not going to show the killing. I don't think there's any need to do that. That's not something we're interested in showing. But the process of taking the animal from being an animal, a full carcass, down to the split meat, where we basically have 2 halves, which goes off to the butcher. The meat typically is taken from here. Once we've finished, it's taken to the processor, which is a place not too far away, and then the meat sits usually for between 8 and 14 days, and it hardens. The meat basically chills, goes hard, and it makes it easier to process when the meat stiffens. So today I'm going to show the process. We've got 2 steers. I'm going to show you the process from taking them from the pen and putting them on the cradle. The guys have like a cradle. So the way the process works is the skin comes off, and then once the skin comes off, you basically cut down the center rib cage, and then you'll see the process if you want to watch it. If you're not interested in this, or if you're offended by this kind of stuff, please do not watch this. It's not meant to shock or scream or make anybody crazy. I just want to show the process. This is real life. These animals are taken and we use them. This is sustain a lot of people, 4 families. So they're giving the lives not in vain, but to the cause of feeding families. So I'm going to show you the process, and then I'm going to be commentating over the top, or kind of tell you what's going on at each step and why we do what we do, and then that's it. So if you don't want to watch this, please tune out and don't watch it. But it's the process from the cow being laid onto the cradle to basically being hung and washed in 2 halves. It's a very fast process. Each animal takes about 15 minutes, not even. It's amazing how it goes from a full live cow to 2 hanging sides, which to me, when you see the hanging sides, that's what you see on the TV and in stores. They become basically the sides of meat. Okay, let's go and take a look. So here we go. We've got the cradle set up, and that keeps basically the animal off the ground. Right now, the first thing that they're going to do is remove the head from the animal. This is done. It also evacuates any blood in the carcass. Just makes things a little bit cleaner. So right now we're going to drop the carcass using the tractor. It's very handy to have a tractor. We're going to drop the carcass up onto the cradle, and that one, it serves as a double purpose. The guys don't have to bend down to the ground as far, and it also keeps the animal off the ground. It keeps it clean to a certain degree. So the first thing that happens, they make an incision from the front where they've removed the head in front of the chest cavity. They make an incision from the front all the way down to the back, and then one from the left to the right hand side across the thighs. This allows for them to get underneath the skin and basically separate the skin away from the animal without cutting into the skin. The whole goal is to
not cut into the skin as much as you can, but sometimes it can't help just a little bit, so the goal is to minimize that as much as possible. Also at this time, the feet are removed from the hooves, from the knuckle down. As you can see, the front feet have already been removed, and then the back feet will be removed very shortly. One of the most important parts at this point is to try and keep the anything that's on the outside, you don't want on the inside of the meat. So they try and keep the contamination off the carcass as much as possible. And that's why everything's filleted and skinned outwards, away from the inside of the meat. These particular steers, and all our steers, all our cows in fact, we're 100% grass-fed. The downside to that, one, it's healthier. The meat is supposed to be more nutritious and healthier. But one of the downside is there's very little fat on the animal. Grass-fed cows and beef don't have that much fat on them. So as you can see, there's very limited number of fat on there. It just makes it a lot more difficult for them to skin the animal to separate the skin. Usually there's a fat cap, so it makes it a lot more easy to separate the hide off the cow. But in this case, it's more difficult because there's not a lot of fat in there. So they will continue on down, separating the skin from the carcass, and then the closer they get down, when there's no space left, then we lift the animal up into the air, which allows the skin to kind of drop from the back as well. Just about to become visible here, you'll see the knife going in. There's two tendons on the back of the heel. They're basically very strong, so that's basically when we lift it from that end. That's where they push the chains through, and it enables us to be able to lift it without damaging the actual carcass itself. The 2 feet, the rear hooves are still on there at this point, so they'll be removed very shortly. Once them chains get removed, the hooves will come right off. And to cut through the bone, any bone that's cut through, whether it's the legs or whether the rib cage or the back, basically it's just a Milwaukee saw, and then it's got a special bone blade in it. You can buy a blade that's just made for bone, and that enables them to cut through the bone very fast and very quickly on site. If you was in a butcher's place, they have super large band saws and all different kinds of saws, but when you're doing it out on site like this, a Milwaukee Sawzall is basically the tool of choice. Yep, so here he goes, he's taking the Sawzall with that bone blade in there, and he'll remove the 2 rear hooves, 2 rear legs, and that will be, the next step will be pushing the chains through them 2 tendons in order for us to be able to lift the animal up. So as you can see on the top right hand side there, he's already cut through the meat on the sternum. That will allow the bone to show through, so that when he's ready, he'll be able to take the Sawzall and cut through the rib cage right down the middle. And underneath that spot, right under the rib cage there, right at the front of the animal, is where the brisket's located. That's like a big, huge chunk of meat on the cow. As you can see there, the rib cage is split open. One that allows once they lift the animal up, the whole internal organs will be separated, and that'll allow them to just basically fall right out of the animal. The chains are going through the 2 tendons at the back, and this will allow us to pick up the whole animal without causing any damage to the carcass. Once it's lifted up into the air, you'll see the rest of the skinning process. They'll continue to work all the way down to the bench again, to the cradle. And then also, once it's lifted up a little bit more, they'll start to separate the internal organs, and everything comes out in one shot. Basically, you want to leave all the internal stuff needs to stay in one piece, so the old digestive tract stays in one piece. You don't want that separating, you don't want to cut into anything there. That way you're not going to contaminate your meat in any way. It's best to keep all that stuff separate. And as you'll see in a second, once the animal's lifted up, they'll start separating the internal stuff down the spine on the inside of the animal, and then the whole thing basically will drop out. Now on a grass-fed cow like this, on a grass-fed steer, the internal stuff, because of the food type, it's usually bloated or larger just because of the source of food. So right now, once again, that the sawzall is coming into play, and they're basically just cutting through the very tip bottom of the tailbone to make sure the two halves, once we separate them, they're basically in two halves. Right now is separating the rear end of the digestive system, which again you want to keep all in one piece. You do not want any of that coming out and separating into different pieces, and then you can get all kinds of stuff coming out of that stomach. So everything's basically left in one piece as much as possible. Continuing right now, skinning down to the cradle, and then in a second you'll see the whole thing lift up. There we go, it's lifting up again, and then that basically puts pressure on the internal organs, as you see, just fall right out. He'll just run down the back of the spine and separate. There's not a whole lot of stuff holding it inside there, so he's just basically going down there now and separating it out, and you'll see in a second the whole thing will basically just fall out as one big unit. That's the whole inside of the digestive system, from front to back, comes out in one piece. So we're getting pretty close to the skin being totally separated from the animal now. We're almost down to the bottom. And once the skin's separated, we personally don't use the skin, as you can see that there. But some people do take that and use it to make leather. It's quite an involved process to do that, but it's not something that we've got involved with doing. The skins are not as valuable as they used to be many years ago. They used to be worth a lot of money, but now the cow hides are not quite worth as much as they used to be. Okay, we're getting close to the skin being separated now, but as you can see, it's looking more like a hanging carcass all the time. Everything from the inside is basically gone and out, and we're almost very close to this being a finished product. This is the absolute best case scenario weather-wise. It keeps the meat chilled. As soon as the meat's released, it starts to chill. Even though these guys do this in the middle of summer, this is still the best case scenario to do this. Now again, this is for private use. We are butchering this. This is not for sale. We don't sell this beef. This is for the private use of our 4 families. So, just on a timeline right now, we're up to about anywhere between 11 and 14 minutes. That's how long it takes, basically, from loading it onto the cradle to hanging, like you can see right now. The whole process probably takes 20 minutes. So we're back to the sawzall. Right now he's going to split the animal right down the middle. He's going to cut right down the spine, and that will basically leave it separated into 2 halves. He's just really taking his time there, making sure he doesn't go into any meat or any of the ribs. That's basically all valuable meat, so he's trying to stay down, right down the center to make it as clean of cut as possible. So we're getting very closer to it basically being separated into two. And once it gets down to the middle, with cutting through the bone, he'll basically just use a knife to separate the last small amount of flesh. And then the two things, as you can see from the top, the two things will just fall down into two separate pieces. The two pieces are then taken over and washed down and cleaned. And then they cut through the 13th rib down. Basically, they make a cut. It's very easy to cut through there. They'll make a separation, and that basically cuts it into quarters. They use the separation on the 13th rib. Looks like it's just been a little bit difficult there, but it's almost through, and then that's it. We're almost done. And there we go. Two separate sides, ready to be washed. And now on to the second steer, which this one's a little bit smaller than the first one, but it takes basically the same amount of time. Dropping him onto the rack, onto the cradle, and again that keeps him off the ground and keeps the animal and the ground separate from each other. You can do it on the ground, but it's going to be more difficult, and two, there's more chance of getting contamination on the animal once the skin is removed. So right now you can see him separating the feet. He's going to cut the legs off, cut the hooves off at that knuckle joint, and then once that's done, we'll see the cuts being made. So even though the hide on the outside is quite tough, once you get through the hide with a super sharp knife, the knuckles and as you can see right there, they go through fairly easy. So you can see there he's starting both at the front and the back. He's going all the way down from the sternum all the way down to the neck, and that skin's been opened. And then also you can see him making, which we missed on the first video, you can see him making the cross cut across the thighs, up the front of the thigh, and then across, and then all the way down to the front of the animal. And there you go, that initial cut is made, and as you can see, they're changing out blades. Once they change blades quite a lot to cut down on contamination. Anything that touches, again, the outside of the animal, you don't want on the inside. So they switch up to a special skinning knife, which is basically curved, and it stops as much as possible cutting into the actual flesh of the animal. So right now you can see him to start just separating that skin. Put a little bit of pressure on it and pull back on it, and it basically separates away. But it is more difficult for these guys just based on the fact that there's not a whole lot of fat on the animal. It just makes it a lot more difficult to skin. So as you can see there, he's separating down the underneath of the animal, and then he'll just keep working it out and working it out until basically most of that skin is pulled.
So how did you guys start doing this? Would you do deer and stuff like that first, or?
I know, we started out right here like we are now.
Oh, did you?
We're in our 50s and we started out before we was probably 6, 7 years old. Family always skun.
Okay.
We always was part of it. We always had to hold the skun on the ground, had to hold a leg.
Yeah.
When you take about 8 or 9, 10 years old, our grandparents got old and they went to holding a leg and we went to using the
Okay.
knife. And then I started shooting. We had one uncle that shot in the family. And then I was probably about 12 or 13, and then I started shooting.
Yeah.
And I don't think they ever shot another one. We're up in the thousands. We done skun them and skun them. We had a friend that, well, we grew up in the 80s at our house, had a mink farm.
Yeah.
They skun horses and they skun anything.
Okay.
Yeah, for the mink to feed when the fur market was big in the 80s. I said, go for a skin anything. If it had a hide on it,
Yep. You can take it off.
it was coming off. Horses and all.
As you can see, the sawzall's out again and the back legs are coming off. Once them back legs are removed, you'll see the small tendons again once they pull the skin off that, which is the spot that usually they hang the carcass from. And that's also one of the spots that they tag. Every carcass is tagged so they know where it is from and whose it is. You'll see them in a little bit put some tags through there so everybody knows what's what.
Because it's different from something else, or?
Yes. Grass fed, or they don't have much fat on them.
Yeah, like these.
They're harder to skin.
Okay.
It's not enough.
The skin's tighter.
Yeah, the skin's on them tighter. There's not like an air gap or a little bit of fat in there.
How can you tell as soon as you look at a carcass if the meat's going to be good or it's going to be average?
Kind of see how fat they are and how much cover's on them.
Yeah.
Really helps. And then a lot of times we can tell by how the bone cuts.
Okay.
They cut easier. Like you talked about skinning that old bull, his bone will be hard.
Okay.
It's terrible, terrible hard.
Okay. No, like that bull, for example, out there. Is that meat going to be good still, or is it just hamburger?
The bull hamburger. This here's fine.
Yeah. This one.
Depends on what to eat, what you've been feeding them.
Yeah, yeah.
So right now again he's going in down the sternum, down the centre bone. He's going to split that. Right underneath that again is the brisket. So you don't go too deep, it's just deep enough to split the cage. And it's not a super strong part of the animal. It splits fairly easy, and then he's just separating the soft tissue on the inside there right now. And then again that will allow the internal organs to slide right out because there's a gap once they're at that stage.
We quit. I don't know who's going to take over.
Yeah. Well,
My youngest grandson would take it.
Yeah. Are they interested in it, or?
He seems to be a little bit. Actually, I got to get him out here to do more with him with that
Yeah.
and make his decision if it's what he wants to do or not.
So right now they're super close to lifting up the animal again and putting up the chains through them tendons, and then we'll be in a position to lift and then complete the skinning of the outside.
Good. Huh? Yeah, right.
So as we raise up there, you'll see him continue to skin down the back, and then that basically puts pressure on the internal organs, and everything wants to slide down towards the ground. So in this case, they use gravity to their advantage, and basically what he's going to do in a second, he's going to go inside there and basically start to separate all anything connective tissue that connects the internal organs to the spine on the inside. And how many times can I say basically? I think I said basically quite a few times there. I've got to stop saying basically. Right there at the back, he's separating the bung, the butt, and also the tail. He cuts right through that, and then that'll totally separate and just fall off with the rest of the skin. But as you can see, keeping it clean at all times, you keep everything that is on the inside not touching the outside. So that's the goal, is to keep everything clean. Right now he's going to take the sawzall and make that first initial cut through the very bottom, through the tailbone. And then once it drops like that, he's going to go on the inside and drop all the internal organs out. And again, there's not a whole lot of stuff that holds the internal organs. It's basically just a soft tissue that holds it to the spine.
Up.
On this second animal, you're going to get a much better view of him separating. You can see him separating the soft tissue right there that holds everything to the back. And then once everything's separated, it just basically drops down to the ground and falls right out of the carcass. So as you can see, as you'll see when we look inside here, you'll see everything's on the ground, everything's clear, everything's dropped out. So this animal is almost done. They're going to take the sawzall in a second once the skin is finished, cut it down the spine, and then it'll fall into two halves, and then we'll be almost done. So if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, but if you've got specifically questions about the whole butchering process, about the separation here, you got any questions, leave them in the comments. I try to answer every single comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can with an answer to your questions. So here comes the start of the show, the Milwaukee Sawzall. Again, you can see him going down that spine. You can see him cutting through each individual vertebrae, and it basically separates. The gravity pulls it apart because he's got the thing hanging from two separate points up top. So again, the same as the first time around, once the spine is cut all the way to the bottom, the bone and cartilage, it just goes down the soft tissue with a knife, and that allows the whole thing to fall into two separate pieces. There you go. Now again, these things will be taken and washed and cleaned down, and then they'll be packaged and taken off to the cooler, to the meat processor, where again they'll spend about 14 days hanging in the cooler. The steaks and the meat that comes off these grass-fed animals, the steaks are not the biggest and they're not the most fat-filled, but they are very, very tender. And we also get the most amazing ground beef, super tender, super rich, just beautiful, beautiful ground beef. So as you can see here, is finishing the process, is just washing them down, taking any loose material off, and then that's about it. We're almost done.
The meat then goes off to the walk-in cooler. We have a meat processor that we send to. The meat is then hung for 14 days and it's chilled. And now what that does, it solidifies the meat and it makes it easier to process, because there's no way you could process it, because it's basically when it's the first day after harvest, it's just like mush, it's just soft. So they couldn't cut it, they couldn't do anything with it. So that's the process.